Pleasant Tuesday morning to all. Welcome to the 33rd Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecture. Each year, the Department of Pediatrics of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery hosts this event to honor a very distinguished and accomplished pediatrician, Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, and to recognize and spotlight those who have made a significant impact in the world of academia, research, and clinical practice in the field of pediatrics. And for this year, we are truly honored to have Professor Randy P. Benito, an esteemed and illustrious pediatric neurologist, as the memorial lecturer. To start this program, may I request the Regent of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Reverend Father Angel Aparicio of the Order of Preachers, to give us the invocation, and this will be followed immediately by the national anthem.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. As we gather this morning in your most holy presence, we beg you, O Lord, bless this community of pediatricians, this waiting universe that seeks and hopes and dreams of authentic freedom and service. Bless the organizers of this memorial lecture in honor of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, a beloved mentor of the Department of Pediatrics of UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. Bless Dr. Randy Benito, our speaker this morning. And let us make the prayer of Doctors Michael Bowman and Ruben Diaz our own prayer.
Lord, you called me to care for your children when they are sick. Help me to do so gladly and joyfully. When I get discouraged, remind me of the value of what I do and help me to do it to the very best of my abilities. Help me to see you in each of my patients, their families, and my co-workers. Help me to understand that I serve as the instrument by which you heal and bring comfort to your children. Give me a smile and a gentle sense of humor, and help me to use them to lighten the trying times. I thank you for the many blessings you have given me. Not only my medical understanding and skills, but also the opportunity to help others, as you taught us to do. May I always remember that giving myself to others does not require that I totally deny my own needs and those of my family. Help me to continually strive for an appropriate balance between my vocation and my family. Help me to make my time
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the
and help me to use them to lighten the trying times. I thank you for the many blessings you have given me. Not only my medical understanding and skills, but also the opportunity to help others, as you taught us to do. May I always remember that giving myself to others does not require that I totally deny my own needs and those of my family. Help me to continually strive for an appropriate balance between my vocation and my family. Help me to make my time with my family the highest in quality, especially when it is limited in quantity. Lord, please give me a heart that listens carefully and patiently to others, particularly my patients, their families, my own family, my co-workers, and to myself. Help me to recognize the needs of each and give me the willingness, the strength, the courage, and the resources to meet these needs according to your will. May I learn something new each day, not getting lost in my daily routine, and help me to persist in my commitment to help others. We make this invitation to honor our Blessed Virgin Mary. Holy Virgin, Mother of God, sweet creature, ennobled by the spirit of freedom, follow us with your generous, tender gaze on this pilgrimage of ours, from mission to mission, and help us turn our thirsty souls into a redeemed soul. Amen.
To formally open this event, let us all welcome the Honorable Dean of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Dr. Maria Lourdes Maglinaw, as she delivers the welcome address.
Good morning, everyone. We are living in times we never imagined will happen. We are trying to survive from a pandemic whose lessons were probably learned but poorly recalled, not due to lack of will, but more importantly, due to lack of solid experience. And today, more than ever, the universal thread that binds mankind together is best expressed in the language we use to convey what we think of and we earnestly feel. But language through the years has taken many forms. And in this era of digital technology, language again assumes a different form with inherent advantages and disadvantages. It is without question the development of language across the human lifespan is both developmental and operational. The complexity of language is a function of human development, and in the hands of skillful pediatricians and developmental medicine experts, children are better equipped with the skills they need to communicate with others. The message echoed by language is a function of how human mind operates and how factors affect the physiology of communication, including all factors converge and diverge to empower the human being to express emotions of far-reaching spectra. Today, in honor of a great medical educator, Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, the Department of Pediatrics, in its 33rd edition of this tradition, recognizes the important influence of digital technology in the development of language. The department has chosen an equally distinguished and highly esteemed scholar and child neurologist, a world-renowned expert in his field, a prototype of excellence in Thomasian medical practice, and the medical educator par excellence. It is my singular pride to welcome a true Thomasian treasure, the Professor Randy B. P. Benito. Allow me to congratulate the Department of Pediatrics of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, chaired by Professor Clara R. Rivera, and the UST Hospital, chaired by Associate Professor Wilfredo R. Santos, for making this tradition possible, one that pays homage to our Thomasian roots and showcases the best Thomasian minds. May the language of Thomasian camaraderie and esprit de corps keeps us together in these trying times. Good day.
Thank you very much, Dean Maglinaw. And to give the opening remarks, may I call on the chair of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Department of Pediatrics, Professor Clara Rivera.
Reverend Father Angel Aparicio, our regent, Dr. Lourdes Domingo Maglinaw, our beloved dean, Dr. Remedios D. Chan, assistant dean, Dr. Dexter Clifton Pe, faculty secretary, Dr. Wilfredo Santos, chair, Department of Pediatrics, UST Hospital. Also, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the officers of the Philippine Pediatric Society with our president, Dr. Jocelyn Eusebio, relatives of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, our dear attendees, a pleasant good morning. Today, as part of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery Sesquicentennial celebration, we give honor to an exemplary member of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Department of Pediatrics, through this memorial lecture. Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero has contributed immensely to what the department and its former and present trainees are now. He left a legacy for us to pursue and cultivate and bring the department to its esteemed position in the medical field. Our memorial lecturer today is a sought-after speaker whose knowledge and expertise in pediatric neurology is indeed well recognized. Listening to his lecture is such an enjoyable experience with how he relates it with life experiences on top of the jokes he shares. He will be formally introduced later. Allow me to thank the head of this year's Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecture, Dr. Olivia Chengo, for all her efforts and hard work in taking care of all the details of this activity and its new platform. Thank you too to the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery Office of the Dean for the great support, and also to EdTech, especially to Dr. Earl Sempio for the technical assistance. And to our dear attendees, may you gain a lot from this session that you can use in your present and future clinical practice. And may the life of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero serve as an inspiration for us to achieve our mission and vision. And I quote, "We will never leave footprints in the sands of time by sitting down. Hence, we have to aim high, work harder, and contribute whatever we can, just like Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero." Again, thank you and good morning to everyone.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clara Rivera. After having heard the biography of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero numerous times from attending the yearly memorial lectures, I have kept an overwhelming amount of respect and admiration for him as a person, as an educator, and as a doctor. To give us a glimpse on the life and times of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, may I call on Dr. Maria Luisa Peralta.
I am deeply honored and I am privileged to present to you the life and times of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero. Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero was born in April 24, 1907 to an illustrious family. His father, Dr. Manuel Guerrero, and Elisa Ocampo. His father is well known for his clinical eye. And in fact, he discovered beriberi, which he treated with tiki-tiki. He was also the founder of the Gota de Leche, a feeding center for indigent children. He passed away at an early age of 42 years in 1918 from gastric cancer. Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero is the second to the eldest of 8 children. He has well-known or illustrious brothers. Lorenzo became a Jesuit priest. Wilfredo is a multi-awarded playwright and a national artist for theater in 1997. Dr. Guerrero took his medical education at the Ateneo de Manila as a working scholar, as a college organist or a chorist. He took his medical education at the University of Santo Tomas, graduating with a Meritissimus in Revalida, during his Revalida in 1930. After his medical education, he took his residency in obstetrics, then shifted to pediatrics in 1931 to 1934 at the Hospital de San Juan de Dios, which is the teaching school of the University of Santo Tomas. He joined the Faculty of Medicine and Surgery in 1935 as an instructor. Then he became a assistant professor in 1939 to 1941. And also, at the same time, he became the secretary to the dean of the Faculty of Medicine and Surgery. In 1941, World War II broke out. Dr. Guerrero went underground and engaged in clandestine anti-Japanese activities so that he was absorbed by the army and he was made a captain. After San Juan de Dios was taken by the invaders, he took charge of St. Paul's Hospital, which became the teaching hospital of UST during the war. After the war, he resumed teaching when UST reopened as an associate professor in 1946. In the same year, UST Hospital was inaugurated as the teaching hospital of UST, and he became the chief of clinics of the Santo Tomas University Hospital from 1946 to 1951. Then he was promoted as professor, full professor in 1947, and head of the Department of Pediatrics, succeeding his sick uncle, Dr. Luis Guerrero, in 1947 to 1960. As head of the Department of Pediatrics, he instituted preventive medicine by establishing the Well Baby Clinic at the outpatient department. He had strong interest in fluid and electrolyte imbalances, in diarrhea, malnutrition, and tuberculosis. He also foresaw the advent of subspecialties. He was a consultant of a lot of hospitals in Manila after the war. He was a pediatric consultant at the Viluna General Hospital, the Ocampo Memorial Medical Center, the Philippine Cancer Society, St. Luke's Medical Center, and the Manila Specialist Medical Center. He was also the consultant of the WHO West Pacific region. In 1947, the Philippine Pediatric Society was established, and he was one of the founding members. He was the vice president of PPS from 1947 to 1949, and then became the president of the Philippine Pediatric Society in 1949 to 1952. During those times, he was a member of the Specialty Board of Pediatrics, which was established in 1960. He was one of the organizers of the Catholic Physician Guild of the Philippines and became the secretary in 1938 and the director of the CPGP in 1958 to 1961. He was also a member of the Philippine Medical Association, the Philippine Federation of Private Medical Practitioners, the UST Medical Association, and the New York Academy of Sciences. He organized several journals of medicine. One is the Santo Tomas Journal of Medicine, the Philippine Journal of Pediatrics, and he authored the Textbook of Pediatrics for Filipino students. He authored 59 scientific articles and 122 editorials in medical journals. For his outstanding contributions to medical journalism, he was awarded a Certificate of Distinction by a fraternity from UP College of Medicine Alumni Chapter in 1960. So these were the members of the Faculty of Pediatrics and Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero as the head at that time. And you can see here, Dr. Rustica Moral, Dr. Carmelita Belmonte Cuyuban, Dr. Estrella Pahid Villar, and those at the back are the clinical clerks and interns that were rotating in pediatrics at that time. In this picture, you can see at the back, Dr. Mauro De Leon, Dr. Felix Estrada, Dr. Rolando Songco, and Dr. Estrella Pahid Villar. And those seated in front, again, Dr. Rustica Moral, Dr. Natividad Alimurong, Dr. Isidora Salamea, Dr. Carmen Lopez, and Dr. Carmencita Belmonte Cuyuban. These are the faculty members and the trainees, the residents of the Department of Pediatrics during the time of Dr. Renato Guerrero. One is Dr. Estrella Pahid Villar, Dr. Aurine de la Cruz, Dr. Tatiana Ong, Dr. Rustica Moral, and you can see behind is Dr. Matilde Gonzalez. Dr. Maria Guerrero is an inspiring model. He is an epitome of a committed, competent, and compassionate Tomasian doctor. He was highly principled and very ethical and practiced what he preached. And he brought out the best in everyone. Dr. Guerrero, as a physician and educator, has the following activities: rounds with patients, followed by admitting conferences with the members of the department and the clerks and the interns that are rotating in the Department of Pediatrics, and then discussions on interesting cases. Every week is a grand rounds, like what we have now, and he is the perpetual moderator. And also, they have a hospital mortality conferences, which was revived before the pandemic. Clinico-pathological conferences are also held. I think it was every Saturday. Dr. Maria Guerrero is a great clinician. He constantly updated new developments in pediatrics. He has a phenomenal diagnostic acumen despite limited resources. His clinical diagnosis is practically the same in all autopsy cases, which at that time was 100% autopsy rate. Dr. Maria Guerrero is a great and just clinician. He is fair to all, and he treated his patients equally, regardless of their status in life. Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero is not only a physician, a teacher, and administrator. He is also an artist. He is engaged in photography, an accomplished pianist, and in fact, together with his friends, Dr. Edmundo Reyes, who plays the violin, Dr. Manuel Casas, a cellist, and the three of them perform at medical and non-medical social functions, and they're often invited at the behest of friends and medical societies. Dr. Maria Guerrero is an eager learner and a music lover. In his home, he has a library stocked up with medical books, journals, classics, and contemporary literatures. He is a music lover with possessions of an array of musical records. Dr. Guerrero is oftentimes a father figure. Actually, he invites his residents, his trainees, in her home for dinner. He was also a loving husband and father, and very magnanimous and selfless. However, Dr. Maria Renato Guerrero died prematurely at the age of 55 in 1962 in Zamboanga after his speaking engagement at a scientific meeting. Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero is a legend. He is a dedicated, committed, competent, and compassionate clinician. He was an educator, a leader, and a researcher, and a complete physician for excellence. He is an artist and a patriot. Above all, despite the reversal of fortune in his family went through after his father's death and the adversities during the war, he rose above the challenges, becoming an icon in the field of pediatrics. Truly a great inspiration for the present and future generation. Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, the legend lives on as a five-star physician, an educator, a researcher, administrator, a social mobilizer, and a practitioner of medicine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peralta, for giving us a detailed description of the life of the great man we are honoring today. Lucky are those who had the opportunity to have worked with him. Now, to introduce our distinguished speaker, let us welcome an equally exceptional pediatric neurologist who herself was a Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecturer, Dr. Rosalina de Sagun.
Good morning. An equally distinguished physician is this year's Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero Lecturer. While he is one of the more popular lecturers in the country, the younger doctors and the students here may not have heard, seen, or listened to him. So may I just give a brief background of Dr. Randy P. Benito. His accomplishments are unquestionable. He is a graduate of our institution, the University of Santo Tomas, Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Benemeritus, and a medical board top-notcher. He had his training in pediatrics from Sinai Hospital of Baltimore, Maryland, and Children's Hospital, National Medical Center in Washington. He then went into pediatric neurology fellowship at the State University of New York Health Science Center at Brooklyn, King County Hospital, Brooklyn, New York. Dr. Benito is a diplomate of the American Board of Pediatrics and the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology with a special qualification in child neurology. He is a fellow of the Philippine Neurological Society, the Child Neurology Society of the Philippines, and the Emeritus Fellow of the Philippine Pediatric Society. He is not new to the academy. He was formerly an associate professor of neurology and pediatrics at the State University of New York Health Science Center in Brooklyn. A teacher at heart, he went back to the Philippines and served as a professorial lecturer at the Faculty of Medicine, UST, and UST Hospital. At about this time, he was already giving lectures and bedside rounds in several medical centers in Metro Manila. Notably, in the UPPGH with Dr. Perla Santos Ocampo, and the Children's Hospital with Dr. Fred Del Mundo. In 2003, he was awarded by the University of Santo Tomas the Dangal Award with the publication of his books. He held administrative positions as past director of pediatric neurology, Department of Pediatrics, the Brookdale University Hospital in Brooklyn. He was a senior pediatric neurologist at the Stanley S. Lam Institute of Child Neurology and Developmental Medicine, Long Island College Hospital in Brooklyn, where he worked with a lot of developmentally disabled children. So back here in Manila, he became a founding fellow and past president of the Philippine Society for Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics. Presently, he is considered the backbone of the section of pediatric neurology in the departments of pediatrics and neurology in this institution. Research and scientific publication are embedded in his system. He is a major contributor to all the 4 editions of Fred Del Mundo's textbook of Pediatrics and Child Health. He is a contributor and the editor of the section of neurology in the book Fundamentals of Pediatrics by Santos Ocampo, Navarro, Bauson, and Sio in 2014. He is the author of the Easy and Practical Pediatric Neurology, the first and second editions, which is now considered the Bible of the pediatric neurology trainees and the pediatric residents. He authored and co-authored a number of scientific papers published in international and local journals. On top of all these accomplishments, Dr. Randy has remained humble, buoyant, cheerful, and blithesome. Never mind his jokes, this guy is a great and passionate teacher. He would start with a basic history and physical examination, a neurologic examination, and then would bring the trainees to the patient. This is just like what Dr. Guerrero, whom we are honoring today, advocates. He is generous in a lot of things, his time, his books, ideas, and even the reflex hammers. He regularly visits an orphanage to cheer the children up. Aside from teaching, he has a great passion for music. Dr. Randy P. Benito is an excellent pianist. Just wait till he sees a piano around. So ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome one of the most sought after speakers in the country, Dr. Randy P. Benito. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Desagun. But before we let our guest speaker deliver his talk, may I request Dean Maglinaw, Dr. Rivera, and the overall chair of this event, Dr. Olivia Go, to award the medallion to Professor Randy P. Benito. The medallion is the symbol of excellence given to the memorial lecturer in recognition of his achievement in his field of specialization. Thank you very much. The digital age is changing children's lives and childhood dramatically. New technologies transform the way people interact with each other, the way stories are shared and distributed, and the way reality is presented and perceived. To give us a better understanding of language development in the digital age, let us all give a warm welcome to the 33rd Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecturer, Professor Randy P. Benito.
Thank you for the introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to give the 33rd Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecture simply because I belong to the class where he was still active and in the medical school before his retirement. I was asked to talk on the development of language in the digital era. However, I thought that we have to go to the basics as the development of speech and language so that we will be able to understand what is happening with the problem. So we will talk about the development of speech and language and the effects of the digital era and the pandemic to speech and language development. I have nothing to disclose. Now, the objectives of this talk are to discuss briefly the development of speech and language in the simplest manner, to enumerate some of the more common disorders of speech and language, and to describe the effects of the digital world and the pandemic and quarantine to speech and language development. Now, we divide the talk into 4 chapters: introduction, speech and language development and most common disorders, the digital revolution, and the pandemic and quarantine. Language is perhaps the greatest gift endowed to humans. No other members in the animal kingdom are known to possess true language. Some animals, like the parrots and the myna birds, speak, but they do not communicate thoughts and ideas. In the simplest definition, language is a symbolic process for communication. Language is a complex process. It enables us to communicate with others. Now, have you ever wondered why children learn to speak? Actually, it has been the focus of discussion for a long time. People used to think that it was because the child is a good listener and learner, and the parents are so caring, loving, stimulating, and reinforcing the that the child learns to speak. However, the reason is much simpler than what was normally thought. The child learns to talk because he is a human being, and being so, he belongs to the talking, communicating species. The child's progress in language acquisition is the result of his unique learning strategies and stimulation he receives. Now, look at this, speech and language. Although the terms speech and language are closely related, they are not at all synonymous. Language is a system that is represented by a number of symbols and is not necessarily verbal. It may include hand signs like pointing and nonverbal body language such as facial expression and body stance. It also encompasses reading and writing. On the other hand, speech is a verbal form of language, which is composed of a number of isolated sounds or phonemes. Now, the development of speech and language depend on 2 important requisites, and these are intact hearing and sufficient intelligence. Now, language makes speech possible even though we can have language without speech. Example, deaf mute. Language develops internally and may even begin before birth. Now, how does language evolve? The development of language follows a regular schedule paralleling motor development. The child is transformed from a helpless infant to a mobile, communicative youngster who is intent on exploring his surroundings. Even though the child develops language in his own, there are regularities in language development that are linked to motor growth. The child at 6 months of age, he begins to sit alone, and there is an increase in babbling, which is pre-speech. The relationship between babbling and the development of speech is controversial, inasmuch as all children sound alike at this stage. Babbling occurs practically in all babies, irrespective of their hearing status. The deaf child stops babbling because at that time, the sounds he produces depend on what he hears. Sound produced, therefore, is based on what he hears. The development of language occurs in stages. One stage leads into the characteristics of another, and patterns of both stages can exist simultaneously. The child, however, must hear, practice, and experiment in order to develop his own language. The process involves repeating, storing, associating with something, retrieving, and using sounds meaningfully. Vowel sounds are the first sounds the baby makes, followed by lip consonants, like your M as in mama, P as in papa, and B as in bye-bye. Certain sounds appear before others in a child's early words, and sounds are patterned to the language the child is exposed to. Sound development continues through age 6, although the majority of the sounds are already mastered by age 4. Certain sounds may not be pronounced well, but errors are developmental in nature, which means that the child will outgrow them. We call this developmental dysarthria. At 18 months of age, the child begins to join words. This is an important milestone and is the cornerstone for future intelligence, and he begins to understand and follow simple commands. How the child develops the appropriate arrangement of words to form correct grammar is not known. Depending on the sophistication of the environment he is exposed to, he develops a wide vocabulary and dictionary. This is what we call lexicon or semantics. Afterwards, the pragmatics occur, which is the communicative intent of the speech and not the content. Pragmatics is an ongoing process that may last a lifetime. By 4 years of age, the child has learned the basics of correct communication, either verbally or through gestures. At the time she enters school, he has practically mastered all speech sounds, but with still some occasional developmental dysarthria. He also has learned to do abstract reasoning from concrete interpretation. Language is unique in that it is represented in one hemisphere, known as the dominant core language of the brain. The left hemisphere is the dominant hemisphere in more than 90% of the people for language, for most people, especially those who are right-handed. Handedness refers to the preferred hand for integrated and more complex acts like writing and manipulating objects. Establishing the dominant hemisphere for language among left-handed people is difficult. The majority of sinistrals are also left brain dominant. The word dominance as applied to language is probably a misnomer. While it is true that the left brain is the dominant hemisphere for most people, it is dominant for language. The dominant hemisphere, usually the right brain, is not the hemisphere for language, but it is dominant for other functions like visual-spatial, face recognition, music, etc. In this talk, the term dominant hemisphere refers to the hemisphere that controls language. The language centers in the dominant hemisphere initially occupies a large area in a developing child, which later becomes compressed to a smaller area through organization and specialization. A lesion in these areas, which happens before the establishment of language, will present no language disturbance. However, in time, there may be considerable delay in language acquisition, but there will be no permanent lack of language. Now, pay attention to this. These are the central or important centers in the brain involved in language. These are the Broca and the Wernicke. Broca is located in the inferior frontal gyrus, while the Wernicke is located in the posterior portion of the superior temporal gyrus. Now, if a lesion in the Broca area, it will produce the inability to express oneself, that's verbal language, varying from total lack of comprehensible speech to telegraphic sentence utterances. This disorder is called Broca aphasia, also known as expressive or non-fluent aphasia. Now, on the other hand, a lesion in the Wernicke area produces lack of understanding of spoken words. The patient speaks freely with good articulation and breathing. The patient may substitute many words and may fabricate new words and may give the correct but mispronounced word. This disorder is called Wernicke aphasia, also known as receptive or fluent aphasia. Now, the two centers, Broca and Wernicke, are connected by a bundle of white fibers called the arcuate fasciculus. A lesion in this area leaves the patient's comprehension and expression intact, but he cannot repeat words. This is called conduction dysphasia. We go now also to reading and spelling. Reading and spelling require a separate area in the dominant hemisphere called the angular gyrus. The angular gyrus is located in the temporal lobe posterior to the Wernicke area, close to the posterior end of the Stygian fissure. In reading, the word is perceived in the primary visual centers in the occipital lobe. Then it is processed in the visual association areas to incite the visual form of the word. Then it is transmitted to the angular gyrus to be converted into the auditory form. From there, it is further relayed to the Wernicke area for comprehension. Now, in spelling, the spoken word must first arrive in the Wernicke center for comprehension and relay to the angular gyrus to be converted into its auditory form. It is then relayed to the visual association areas for its visual form and relayed back to the Wernicke. If the word is to be spelled verbally, it has to be transmitted further anteriorly to the Broca center for speech production. If the word has to be written, further relay to the motor strip is necessary to execute movements. Spelling, however, requires more complex processes such as sequential processing, spatial orientation, and memory. The acquisition of speech and language is expected to progress normally with the development of other developmental tasks. It is worrisome when a child past a year of age is not making any attempt to say words. Speech delay and language disorders are not uncommon. 2 to 3% of all children worldwide are delayed in the development of language, especially in speech. Sometimes parents are assured that the child will learn to speak sooner or later. This is probably true, but a limit should be set as to when the child should be intervened. When is the proper time to refer the child for intervention? Many speech pathologists, child neurologists, and developmental pediatricians recommend referral as early as 18 months of age for an essentially non-verbal child. Personally, I tend to be a little conservative, provided that the child's comprehension is good. I wait until he is 2.5 to 3 years of age because from personal experience, this child will become verbal in time. However, if comprehension is also lagging, especially when there are peculiarities in behavior and socialization, then I refer the child as soon as possible. Parents often believe that the child becomes confused because of exposure to multiple languages. Exposure to multiple languages is not a reason for speech delay, inasmuch as normal children are endowed with an enviable capability of acquiring multiple languages. Likewise, some parents think that their child is not speaking because he is tongue-tied. Ankyloglossia, the medical term for tongue-tied, is an anomaly of the tongue. And although the tongue is essential for enunciation, it has nothing to do with the development of speech and language. The rate of language development is highly variable, so that it is often difficult to distinguish true language disorder from speech and language delay that eventually catches up. However, failure to develop normal expressive language by 3 years is considered pathological. The 2-year-old boy who has both expressive and receptive language difficulties is also of concern as it may persist through the school years. Now, why do we worry about delays in speech and language? Because of all the various developmental milestones, language is the strongest predictor of future intelligence. Now, language development is the single most important intellectual accomplishment in a child under 5 years of age. It is the only public form of cognition in the early years and the window to the developing mind. Therefore, delayed language acquisition may predict intellectual retardation and or predict future academic difficulties. The incidence of delayed speech and language among Filipino children is not known. In the United States, a fairly large number, 5 to 7%, have serious speech, language, and hearing problems. This may be true in the Philippines. Now, like what I said before, I am going to mention the major causes of speech delay. And there are 4 of them, and I call them the 4 A's. First A, amentia, is otherwise known as intellectual deficiency. 2, audiologic deprivation, okay, that's hearing loss. 3, aphasia, and this is due to neuromaturational delay and developmental language disorders. In its context, aphasia is a misnomer. Why? Because aphasia is a disturbance in language secondary to an acquired brain lesion. And this is not acquired because it hasn't even been developed. But it has been called congenital aphasia, so we will also call it aphasia here in this discussion. And last but not least, autism, which is more popularly known now as pervasive developmental disorder. We would expect the acquisition of speech and language to progress normally with the development of other developmental tasks. We should worry when the child past a year of age is not making any attempt to say words. Okay, so that is the development of speech and language. Now we go to the digital age. Learning has changed. As you can see in this slide, my children are not holding books. They're ignoring them. What do they have? Gadgets. The top one have tablets. The lower picture, tablets and cell phones. The digital age has changed our children's lives dramatically. New technologies transform the way people interact with each other, the way stories are shared, distributed, and the way reality is presented and perceived. Parents experience that toddlers can handle tablets and apps with a level of sophistication that the children's grandparents can only envy. In Great Britain, a recent survey of preschoolers shows a rising number of toddlers are put to bed with a tablet instead of a bedtime story. In the USA, a telephone survey of more than 1,000 parents of children aged 2 to 24 months document that by 3 months of age, 40% of children regularly watch TV, DVD, or videos, while by 24 months, the proportion rose to an alarming 90%. Moreover, with the advance in exponential use of social media, children see their parents constantly interacting with mobile devices instead of people around them. Gadgets, therefore, have become the children's new best friends. They no longer engage in play. They no longer read books. So what are the consequences of this digital reality for children's acquisition of the most fundamental of all human skills, language and communication? From TV and radio to tablets and robots, modern digital technology has attracted attention of scholars due to its seemingly favorable affordances. It allows for multi-sensory interaction and provides rich input in the form of visual, auditory, and haptic stimuli. A recent study by Allen et al. Exploits the multimodal nature of the input provided by iPads. The main question addressed in that study is whether iPads might promote symbolic understanding and word learning in children with autism in comparison with age-matched typically developing controllers. The hypothesis was that multiple differently colored exemplars of target reference as afforded by the iPad technology might promote phonological pattern meaning, referent associations, for example, compared to single exemplars. The study included 4 conditions contrasting the use of iPad versus a book and exposing children to single versus multiple exemplars of target items. Participating children were tested on whether they would associate the word to a 3-dimensional reference, which is the real-life object, or whether they would generalize it to another member in the same category but shown in a different color. The results indicated no differences between the 2 types of medium, iPad or book, in symbolic understanding and level of generalization. They further demonstrate that exposure to multiple exemplars increases the rate of extension from picture to 3-dimensional object. Now, children's vocabulary increases with interaction. Okay? the language directed to him. Technology has changed the landscape of learning and language development. In reality, we leave our children to learn on their own. Now, what do we know so far from research? Zimmerman and Christakis reported that early television exposure in children younger than 3 years was associated with deleterious effects on cognitive development, such as reading recognition at age 7 years. Their findings were based on a longitudinal study and supported the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines that parents should discourage TV viewing for children younger than 2 years. Tanimura and Okoma did a survey on development and rearing of 18-month-old children in 3 areas of Japan, also suggested that children with frequent television viewing, more than 4 hours a day, would have delayed development of meaningful word speech, even with parental talking during television watching. Because of these findings, the Japan Pediatric Society proposed that children younger than 2 years of age should avoid frequent TV viewing. To clarify the reason for the association between delayed development in speaking and heavy TV viewing, these authors conducted an observational study. The effect of gadget on speech development in toddlers. This research employed 3 themes, which were toddlers who used gadgets for developing speech, the duration of playing on the gadget, and how to check gadget addiction in toddlers. The research revealed that gadget had a negative effect on the development of speech in toddlers, which made it impossible to them to talk like other children of the same age. Now, in 2016, there was another survey study done by the Canadian Pediatric Society. They found that parents sought advice about their children's screen time in 4 areas: duration, setting limits, the effects of health and well-being, and optimal content. Literature research into the effects of screen media on children younger than 5 years included systematic reviews, guidelines, and policy statements on screen media exposure and use. Potential benefits and risks were categorized into developmental, psychosocial, and physical domains. Whether early exposure to screen media changes the developing brain is not known. And published research on how children younger than 5 years actually learn from screens remains limited. Still, studies show that while babies do not absorb contents from television, it can catch and hold attention. They can imitate specific actions and they scenes on screen between 6 and 14 months and remember brief sequences by 18 months. Children begin to understand content of what they say by the end of the second year. There is solid evidence that infants and toddlers have difficulty transferring new learning from a 2-dimensional figure to a 3-dimensional object and are unlikely to learn from TV. By contrast, they learn more intensively through face-to-face interaction with parents and caregivers, and is more enriching and developmentally more efficient when experienced live, interactively in real time and space and with real people. There are benefits and risks on screen media on development. for early language and literacy for children. They may foster aspects of cognitive. They help retain thought information, and they can also teach new words and expand the vocabulary. However, there are more risks than benefits. Causal relationship between heavy early screen exposure, that is more than 2 hours per day for children under 1 year of age with significant language delays. There is attentional difficulties. High exposure to background TV negatively affects language use and acquisition and attention, cognitive development, and executive function. It reduces parent-child quality interaction. Sound effects and animation can interfere with story comprehension. There is also inability to distinguish everyday reality from what happens on the screen. Some studies associate prolonged TV viewing with lower cognitive functioning, especially related to short-term memory, early reading and math skills, and language development. Violent content on TV can negatively impact executive function, and these effects can be cumulative. The inability of young children to distinguish everyday reality from what happens on screen, along with their efforts to make sense of competing experiential realms, may interfere with and impede executive functions. Now, because there are no benefits of media exposure for infants and toddlers, and some non-developmental risks, counsel parents to minimize young children's screen time. Minimizing screen time leaves more time for face-to-face interaction, which is how young children learn best. When children watch educational age-appropriate content with an engaged adult, screen time can have a positive learning experience. However, when adults mitigate screen time, they watch the children. Adults can connect what is viewed with real life and build language and connective skills, such as attention, memory, and thinking. Shared screen time also avoids the disadvantage of solitary viewing. Actively curate children's screen activities by prioritizing educational content or apps, avoiding mainstream or commercial programs. Combine touch screen use with creative or active play. Now, are there studies in the local setting about the development of speech and language and other development areas in the digital age? There are now several studies in our country regarding use of gadgets in relation to the development of the child, especially in speech and language. I will, however, use one study performed at the De La Salle University Medical Center that shows the effects of early exposure to gadgets in young children. The study consisted of a cross-sectional analytical observation conducted center outpatient department on children 24 to 30 months for just a month's period. The researcher utilized a self-made questionnaire divided into two parts: profile of parents and children, exposure to screen media, age of introduction to screen media, and content material. The participants were then screened for language delay using the early language milestone scale. Responses were obtained from a combination of parental or caregiver report, examiner observation, and direct testing. 34 of 68 participants had early exposure to screen time. Children who had early screen media exposure had a higher failure rates in the early language milestone scale. Statistical results revealed that children who had early exposure to screen media had a fourfold likelihood of manifesting with language delay, where expressive language is more affected than receptive function. The findings of the study supports that early exposure to screen time with more than 2 hours per day has an association that can be linked to language delay. And so came the pandemic. Look at this slide. Learning has become chaotic. It's like a maelstrom. Remote learning, online learning, blah, 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 blah. So what happened? There is more screen time during the pandemic, less interaction with other students, friends, and teachers. Parents are likewise busy with their work from home status and rely on what the internet can provide as answers to their children's questions. More and more online fatigue, online burnout have been documented. Now, this is a study done on online learning in China. The survey was done among parents of more than 3,000 students. 92.7, close to 95% had experienced online learning during the pandemic. Parents generally had negative beliefs about the values and benefits of online learning and preferred traditional learning in early childhood settings. Resistance to online platform for 3 reasons. Shortcomings of online learning. The teachers, platforms, materials are inadequate. Young children's inadequate self-regulation. Children cannot really focus and cannot control themselves. And parents' lack of time and professional knowledge in supporting children on online learning. Also, the hardship caused by COVID-19 has made the families suffering, thus more resistant to online learning at home. The results suggested that the implementation of online learning during the pandemic has been problematic and challenging to the families. The Chinese parents were neither trained nor ready to embrace online learning. The authors of this Chinese paper concluded with implications for policymakers and teacher education. In other words, these teachers and their supervisors should make a better outline on how to implement online teaching. In summary, I have presented the development of speech and language in a relatively comprehensible manner and have enumerated common causes of speech delay. I also have cited the effects of the digital world for the development of speech and language and other areas of development. Most, if not all, of the studies indicate the negative effects of early exposure of young children to various gadgets. And briefly, I also have mentioned the effects of online learning, although there are not that many studies about this, and there is none I found in the Philippines. But it seems to also be negatively affecting learning of children. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Randy, for the excellent and very informative talk. The lessons learned from your presentation are quite relevant and will definitely help us pediatricians in the developmental evaluation of children. Moving on to the next part of the program, we are deeply honored to have with us the daughter of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, Mrs. Cynthia Maria Guerrero Madrigal, to give us a short response on behalf of the family. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Cara Madrigal D., the granddaughter of Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero. Thank you very much for gracing this event in honor of your grandfather.
Reverend Father, Pediatrics Department Heads, Pediatricians, future doctors, I welcome all to the lecture series of my late father, Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, a dedicated pediatrician, a professional full of love for his work, and to this time I miss so much. He was one of a kind. I pray and hope for this continuing program. Thank you so much to all the participants.
Thank you. In recognition and gratitude to our guest speaker, may I request Dean Maglinaw, Dr. Rivera, and Dr. Go to award the Certificate of Appreciation. Next slide, please. And the certificate reads, the University of Santo Tomas Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Department of Pediatrics, presents the Certificate of Appreciation to Professor Randy D. P. Benito, MD, a speaker in the 33rd Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecture entitled Language Development in the Digital Age, given this 11th day of May in the year of our Lord, 2021 at the University of Santo Tomas, España, Manila, Philippines. Signed by Dr. Olivia Go, the committee head for the Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecture. Signed by Dr. Wilfredo Santos, the chair of the UST Hospital Department of Pediatrics. Signed by Dr. Clara Rivera, the chair of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Department of Pediatrics, and by the Dean of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, Dr. Maria Lourdes Maglinaw. Thank you again, Professor Dr. Randy P. Benito, and congratulations. To conclude this morning's event, may I request the chair of the UST Hospital Department of Pediatrics, Dr. Wilfredo Santos, to deliver the closing remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Congratulations, Dr. Olivia Chengo, for successfully organizing this 33rd Renato Maria Guerrero Memorial Lecture, and our guest speaker, Dr. Randy P. Benito, for delivering a very insightful and timely lecture on language development in the digital age. I would like to thank everyone for your participation in this scientific activity. From the family of the illustrious Dr. Renato Maria Guerrero, the administration of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery, and the faculty staff of the Department of Pediatrics, and to all our guests, the officers of the Philippine Pediatric Society, the faculty staff of the different medical schools and colleges, and to all our pediatric colleagues. Thank you very much for making this occasion a fruitful and memorable one. Before I end, I would like to invite everyone to our 46 postgraduate course today and tomorrow at 4 to 8 p.m. Thank you very much. God bless and keep safe, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Santos. So on behalf of the UST Faculty of Medicine and Surgery Department of Pediatrics, I would like to thank everyone for sharing their precious time with us. We will now formally end this event with the UST hymn, the song of our beloved alma mater. Thank you and a pleasant morning to all. And may I
Thank
request
you,
all the
everybody.
faculty and hospital staff to stay for the group photo. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Benito also.
And the
I am
dean.
I am here.
Oh yeah. Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Doctora. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So please turn on your videos so we can take a picture. As of now, there's only 4, 8, 12, 14.
Well, they cannot turn on their videos.
They should be promoted to panelists as we have discussed yesterday. So only those that were promoted as panelists. Anybody else that needs to be promoted as panelist?
Yun yata
Letter M pa lang po ako, Doc.
Doctora Moral Valencia.
Okay, anybody else that needs to be promoted as panelist?
Si Doctora Mimi.
Chan.
There.
Thank you po.
Promote to panelist. Okay. Dr. Chan is here. Real.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Would you like to be joined in the talk show? Good morning, everybody.
Hi, good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
Congratulations po. Dr. Go, ganda.
Oh, thank you.
Congrats, Olive. Thank you, Dr. Randy.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Randy.
Dr. Randy.
Congratulations.
Randy.
Thank
Congrats,
you.
Randy. Dr.
Dr. Randy, congrats.
Nice, very educated.
Dr. Randy, congrats po.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Olive, nice to see you all. Miss ko na kayo lahat.
Thank you.
Doc, Earl, thank you very much.
Okay, I'm
Thank
taking.
you.
Welcome po. Okay, I'm taking the photo. Is everybody ready?
Page 1.
Okay. And game 1. Smile. 1, 2, 3.
Nasaan yung picture?
Doc, saan mo masasend yun?
Viber.
Sa email din po, I'll send it.
Earl.
Yes, Doc.
Kailan ma-view ito sa YouTube?
Doc, I can send you the link po directly.
Naka-record.
Anytime.
Sa YouTube po.
How do you access it?
Doc, click nyo lang po.
Click
Doc,
nyo
yung
lang
link.
yung
Parang
link.
nanood lang kayo sa YouTube. I'll send you the link po. Okay, one more picture. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, so I'll send this via email, and Doc, I'll send you the link.
Thank you, Earl.
Okay po.
Thank you, Earl.
Nice to see you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you po. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Dean.
Thank you.